Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are at this moment, and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here to this community of memory and hope. Here we share our joys and our struggles in our quest for what is good and true, and our commitment to justice and compassion. Welcome to this video worship service for July 4th at the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. My name is Rebecca Howard. I'm a worship associate for this congregation. Our minister, the Reverend John Cullinan, is on sabbatical, and during his absence, we're hearing from a wonderful variety of pulpit guests. Today, I am delighted to introduce our guest speakers, Mike and Nicole Adams. Nicole and Mike are Indigenous North Americans. They are Lil'wat people from the area near Whistler, British Columbia, Canada. Both grew up in the USA, but have fostered relationships with their Canadian family. Mike works in national security, and Nicole considers himself a modern socialist. They both have a long-term connection to our church and are leaders in our religious education programs. They also have a strong interest in music and have held jam sessions on Facebook Live for the last few years. Welcome, Mike and Nicole, and welcome to all of you.
As we light our chalice, let us remember that not all words and events have the same meaning to all people. Our chalice-lighting words come to us from Oberlin UU Fellowship in Oberlin, Ohio. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also, to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together.
We speak our affirmation each week to remind us of why we come together and the promises we make to each other and to the wider world. In that awareness, I invite you to join in our affirmation.
Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all.
No words were written in our virtual prayer book for this week, but our lives can hold tears of sorrow and loss as well as songs of joy and hope. Let us take a moment now to bring to mind and heart whatever joys and sorrows we carry with us this day. We all experience times of frustration, anxiety, loneliness, personal struggles, and yet the joy of clouds bringing much-needed rain to a dry forest, or the sun shining through to warm the earth, encouraging plants to grow and birds to sing, or the joy of coming together again in community, all connect us to everything that is real, and remind us that hope and beauty are as real as pain and loss.
I invite you into a moment of reflection and meditation with the words of Sophia Lyon-Fawes. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life.
Our Time for All Ages today is an Ethiopian tale from our UU Tapestry of Faith curriculum.
Long ago, fire, water, truth, and falsehood lived together in one large house. Although all were polite toward each other, they kept their distance. Truth and falsehood sat on opposite sides of the room. Fire constantly leapt out of water's path. One day, they all went hunting together. They found a large number of cattle and began driving them home to their village. "Let us share these cattle equally," said Truth as they traveled across the grasslands. "This is the fair way to divide our captives." No one disagreed with Truth except Falsehood. Falsehood wanted more than an equal share, but kept quiet about it for the moment. As the 4 hunters traveled back to the village, Falsehood went secretly to Water and whispered, "You are more powerful than fire. Destroy fire, and then there will be more cattle for each of us." Water flowed over fire, bubbling and steaming until fire was gone. Water meandered along, cheerfully thinking about more cattle for itself. Falsehood, meanwhile, whispered to Truth, "Look, see for yourself. Water has killed fire. Let us leave Water, who has cruelly destroyed our warm-hearted friend. We must take the cattle high in the mountains to graze." As Truth and Falsehood traveled up the mountain, Water tried to follow, but the mountain was too steep and Water could not flow upwards. Water washed down upon itself, splashing and swirling around rocks as it tumbled down the slope. Look and see, Water is still tumbling down the mountainside to this day. Truth and Falsehood arrived at the mountaintop. Falsehood turned to Truth and said in a loud voice, "I am more powerful than you. You will be my servant. I am your master. All the cattle belong to me." Truth rose up and spoke out, "I will not be your servant." They battled and battled. Finally, they brought the argument to Wind to decide who was master. Wind didn't know. Wind blew all over the world to ask people whether truth or falsehood was more powerful. Some people said a single word of falsehood can completely destroy truth. Others insisted, like a small candle in the dark, truth can change every situation. Wind finally returned to the mountain and said, "I have seen that falsehood is very powerful, but it can rule only where truth has stopped struggling to be heard. And it has been that way ever since."
Our reading today is by Robin Tanner. It is titled A Blessing for Risk Takers and Failures. Today we share in a blessing for losers, risk takers, all failures far and wide. Blessed are they who fall in the mud, who jump with gusto and rip the pants, who skin the elbow and bruise the ego, for they shall know the sweetness of risk. Blessed are they who make giant mistakes, whose intentions are good, but impact is injured, who know the hot sense of regret and ask for mercy, for their hearts will know the gift of forgiveness. Blessed are they who have seen a D or an F or C, or any letters less than perfect, who are painfully familiar with the red pen and the labels as less than, for they know the wisdom in the imperfect. Blessed are they who try again, who dust off, who wash up, who extend the wish for peace, who return to sites of failure, who are dogged in their pursuit, for they will discover the secret of dreams. Blessed are they who refuse to listen to the naysayers, for their hearts will be houses for hope. Blessed are they who see beyond the service of another, for they will be able to delight in the gift of compassion. Blessed are they who stop running the race to help a fellow traveler, who pick up the fallen, who stop for injured life, for they shall know the kindness of strangers.
Happy 4th of July. Today, my son Mechach and myself are going to share about the 4th of July and hopefully introduce some nuance into your thinking about this holiday. On April 25th, 1947, Presbyterian minister Peter Marshall, who was the U.S. Senate chaplain, stood before the U.S. Senate and he said, "May we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right." An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 saw the National Security Act formally create distinct military branches.
An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 also saw the passage of the Taft-Hartley Act, much maligned by President Truman. Taft-Hartley paved the way for 1950s McCarthyism and more aggressive treatment of workers and unions by the federal government.
An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 saw the Congress of Racial Equity organize the first freedom ride into the South.
An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 saw the U.S. Supreme Court overturn Mississippi's ruling that black defendants had no right to a jury with black citizens serving on that jury.
An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 saw President Truman's Committee on Civil Rights produce statistics which compared health access and educational opportunities between white Americans and black Americans. This set the groundwork for civil rights legislation nearly a decade and a half later.
An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 saw Jackie Robinson join the Brooklyn Dodgers and play a breakthrough season.
An opportunity to do what is right. 1947 saw Federal Housing Administration actively promote racial segregation and actively discriminate by refusing mortgage insurance in black neighborhoods, practices which were finally outlawed with the passage of civil rights legislation in 1968.
A lot happened in 1947, some good, some bad. Do you think we took advantage of the opportunity to do what is right? Some of you may answer no, whilst others may think that things inevitably get better. You may be saying to yourself, there was progress then, and we've seen progress since. Well, we have, indeed.
And we haven't. Not really. The years that have passed since 1947 have also been mixed with gains, especially in the 1960s, followed by seeing many of those gains erased and reversed in the years since then.
When I think about the 4th of July, it occurs for me in a similar way to how I view the year 1947. There's some good, some bad, and a lot of ambivalence.
Today, Mechach and I are going to share a variety of perspectives about July 4th. My hope is that you'll walk away with a better sense of the inherent nuance surrounding this national holiday. And because I don't believe in starting small, Mechach is going to open with a portion of Frederick Douglass's Independence Day address from 1852. For any who don't know, Douglass was an escaped slave. He was an abolitionist, and he was an activist. His excoriation of American hypocrisy was harsh on that 1852 summer day, but he was honest and dreadfully accurate.
What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim.
At the time Douglass wrote this, his former owner still wanted to regain control of Douglass, and the country was filled with people who would gladly see Douglass murdered.
How do Douglass's words make you feel about the 4th of July?
Is it upsetting?
Unsettling?
Uplifting?
Infuriating?
Do you find it relevant? Or perhaps irrelevant?
In 1768, founding father John Dickinson's Liberty Song declared, "Come, join in hand, brave Americans, all, and rouse your bold hearts at fair liberty's call. No tyrannous acts shall suppress your just claim, or stain with dishonor America's name."
Dickinson owned as many as 37 enslaved men, women, and or children in his life. Yet he believed or claimed that he stood against tyranny.
So what is July 4th? What does Independence Day mean? To whom? Starting when? And for how long?
For Benny Harding, who arrived in Kansas City on July 4th, 1949, Independence Day has a special meaning. In his own words, my folks survived the Holocaust. My father was in 8 concentration camps. My mother was 12 when she went to the concentration camp. Harding was born in a displaced persons camp in 1946. And he remembers how his mother talked about the day that they arrived in Kansas City.
It was terribly hot. I remember my parents said they were dressed in whole clothing and coats. We were in the middle of Union Station, and it was hustling and bustling. I'll always remember my mother talking about how she looked out the window of our hotel. She would describe it as, "They were dancing in the streets," she said. "This is going to be a good place for us."
In 2016, Benny Harding talked about how the 4th of July is a special day for the Harding family. For them, it symbolizes a new beginning in the land of dreams. We don't take anything for granted. July 4th in my household has always been special. And this year will be no exception. We will gather together, even if it does rain. We will celebrate and remember that this was the starting point.
How do you feel about the 4th of July now? What about the Harding story touches you? What about it impresses you? What about it, if anything, do you relate to? The best way to get rid of injustice is by stopping it yourself. Change begins with one person. Let freedom and unity ring throughout the nation this 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to you and your family. Author unknown.
Next, let's hear from Alvaro Macias, a Mexican American who published these words on July 4th in 2006. A few years ago, I was meeting with a client who wanted to know if Hispanics celebrated the 4th of July. Before he asked, he made sure he could ask me a question that might sound bad. I think it's probably a valid question. I referred to my own personal experiences and told him that, first off, we usually have the day off of work and that my family gets together for a cookout. We'll get some fireworks for the kids. That's about it. He laughed and said, "It's just like us." I thought about it and realized that most people just spend this day with their families, no matter what their background is. Some people put hamburgers on the grill, while others have arrachera, or skirt steak. Some people spend thousands of dollars on fireworks, while others might settle for a few sparklers. There's no right, no wrong way to celebrate. To many, it's a day spent with family. But let's not forget that the reason we celebrate is because on July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was adopted, officially making the United States an independent nation with very unique characteristics that are reflected today. It is a nation built by immigrants. It is a nation that was built for those who were persecuted by their governments. It is a nation where one can make something out of nothing. This is a nation full of opportunities, and as an immigrant from a country where corruption is so widespread and the best opportunities are reserved for a select few, I can appreciate these opportunities that are available probably more than someone who was born here. You don't have to be born into a wealthy family to get a formal education. You don't even need a college education to be a successful business person.
Meanwhile, on July 5th, 2018, Pamela Avila, another Mexican American, said, "This 4th of July, we need to take a step back and reevaluate what independence truly means. When racism, bigotry, xenophobia, homophobia, and so much more run rampant in our culture. We keep reading that this isn't America, but it is. The America that's currently stripping away people's rights in the name of patriotism and nationalism is the same America that has a history of slavery, inequality, and segregation. It's the same America that put 100,000 Haitian and Central American immigrants at risk of deportation this year after the Trump administration ended temporary protected status, a program that allowed immigrants from those countries who are unable to return to their home countries safely to remain in the U.S.
So take a moment now. Think. How do you feel about the 4th of July now? Would you feel differently if you knew that a disproportionate and overwhelming number of American Indian tribal gatherings occur on or around the 4th of July? What about the fact that these tribal gatherings are often the social highlight for any given year? How does that make you feel about the 4th of July?
What if I told you that the reason there are so many tribal gatherings around the 4th of July is because the US government began developing laws in the 1880s that became known as a Religious Crimes Code?
These regulations made up the heart of the Federal Office of Indian Affairs Code of Indian Offenses.
They prohibited American Indian ceremonial life.
They banned Indian dances and feasts.
They disrupted religious practices and destroyed or confiscated sacred objects.
Non-compliant Indians faced imprisonment and possibly the withholding of treaty rations, which could mean starvation for their people.
The Secretary of the Interior issued these sorts of regulations in 1884, in 1894, and in 1904.
Indian superintendents and agents implemented these laws and codes until the mid-1930s.
For 50 years, Indian spiritual ceremonies were held in secret.
Or they simply ceased to exist.
In response to this policy of cultural and religious suppression, some tribes recognized an opportunity in the 4th of July. It was a chance to practice important indigenous ceremonies.
You see, superintendents, Indian superintendents and agents, they felt justified in allowing reservations to conduct ceremonies on the 4th as a way for the Indians to learn patriotism to the United States and to celebrate the country's ideals.
How do you feel about the 4th of July now? Does this information change anything for you?
Later, American Indian veterans were welcomed home as modern followers of warrior traditions. The Navajo and Pawnee both used the 4th of July to honor their veterans. Veteran songs and flag songs are sung. Before the reservation era, most Indians feared the advancing American flag. It often meant conflict and death and destruction. But World War I saw more than 12,000 American Indians serve. And after that war, the American flag began to receive a prominent position at American Indian gatherings, especially those held on the 4th of July. This symbol of patriotism and national unity continues to be carried into both powwows and rodeo arenas today.
Does that make you feel different? Freedom is the opportunity to do what is right.
One of the most quoted portions of the Declaration of Independence says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness."
And that same Declaration of Independence also says, King George III has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
How does that make you feel about the 4th of July? On July 3rd in 2019, several Chinese immigrants shared thoughts in the Northwest Asian Weekly publication, where Stanford University student Edwin Ong said, "I do think that immigrants come in search of the American dream. The idea that they can work hard, succeed, and give their children a better future. It's a time for me to look back and reflect on how hard my parents have worked to get where they are, and to appreciate America for giving them an environment that allowed them to succeed. It's also a time for me to consider how America is changing. I think there is a lot less social mobility now than there was then. It is a time to reaffirm my commitment to preserve the American dream."
Whitman College student Michelle Zhang said, "This holiday is a celebration of independence for America. As an immigrant, I do not feel distanced from the weight of the holiday, but recognize its weight and how it has translated over to my current day experience as an American."
Lee Chen Miller, a program manager at Microsoft, said, "To me, the 4th of July is a day of celebration and reflection. Commemorated by fireworks, parades, and family gatherings, I am proud and grateful to be living in America, celebrating our Day of Independence into a new nation and living the dream."
Yet, in 1882, the United States Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which lasted until 1943. The act functionally prohibited Chinese people from coming to the United States. It prevented people of Chinese origin from becoming citizens. And it deported thousands of Chinese people without cause.
Sometimes I wonder if maybe I think about patriotism differently than most. I don't see patriotism as love of country, and certainly not nationalistic fervor.
Patriotism, as it is often conceived, can be highly problematic, especially when it encourages racism,
Or hate,
exclusion,
indifference,
subjugation,
violence.
the abandonment of human empathy.
How do you feel about the 4th of July now?
How have we, as a nation, used our freedom as an opportunity to do what is right?
And how have we failed to use our freedom in that way?
What if patriotism means being more thoughtful?
What if patriotism means doing the right thing even when that is the hard thing to do?
What if patriotism means owning everything that has been done, good and bad?
What if patriotism means making amends for damages done?
What would the 4th of July mean under those circumstances?
Happy 4th of July.
Thank you, Mike and Nicole, for your thoughtful words and the challenges you offer us. Next week, our guest speaker is Barbara Gabot, a member from the Silver City UU Church, who will share with us the story of a UU border project. Please remember that if you plan to watch the service Sunday morning at 10:30 at the church, you must reserve a seat. The number of individuals allowed in the building is currently capped at 50. As we continue to gather as a community in the church building to watch our recorded video services, volunteers are needed. To sign up, to attend, or to volunteer to help, please use the church webpage or contact the church office. If you are joining us for the first time, we invite you to sign our virtual guest book, and everyone is reminded that you can submit personal joys and sorrows in our virtual prayer book. The Reverend John Cullinan will be on sabbatical until November 1st. During this time, we invite you to direct your questions and comments to the church office. The links for doing all these things are in the service notes below this video. Please continue to check our website and our Facebook page for announcements. If you haven't already done so, sign up for our email announcements for opportunities to connect during the week. Here in this religious community, we receive gifts that nurture body, mind, and spirit. Our offering is an opportunity to share some of what we have with the wider world. Our community partner for the month of July is Tewa Women United. This organization started in 1989 as a support group for women from the pueblos of the northern Rio Grande concerned with the traumatic effects of colonization, religious inquisition, and militarization leading to issues such as alcoholism, suicide, domestic or sexual violence, and environmental violence. In 2001, Tewa Women United was incorporated for educational, social, and benevolent purposes, specifically for the ending of all forms of violence against Native women and girls, Mother Earth, and to promote peace in New Mexico. 100% of the offering collected this month will be given to our partner. Please use the link in the service notes below or download the Givelify app and select the Unitarian Church as your gift recipient. May what you give bring you joy.
One, two, let's go. One, we see that there's a wrong to be righted. We know that we are strong and united. We exercise our right to assemble. That's when the proud and mighty start to tremble. Nothing takes one ring. Nothing takes one ring. Nothing takes one ring.
In the words of Cynthia Landrum, we leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection. Our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving.